Hey, hi. This video's, I'm going to try and keep it on topic, and I want to make a video about basically how I became the person I am. I'm making this channel to try and pass on knowledge, show people a way to live that I believe for people like me is something that we should aim for. But I've come to that conclusion only after a couple of decades of learning. And well, to start with, I had a bit of a blessing and a curse when I was born. I was born autistic with Asperger's at a low enough level that I'm functional, or at the functional end of the spectrum, but with a high enough intelligence that I can learn quickly. And I've used that to learn, and I've gone through life learning different things. Didn't really try and start learning until my late teens, but I went through job after job. I learnt how to do most things in construction and sort of the menial jobs, and construction, engineering, technology. Computers were invented when I was in my early teens, and I had them all through school, and I was born at the perfect time then to learn about technology. And I did computing courses out of school. In New Zealand it was it was called A+, C++, your physical and your programming things, and got into programming in that, and then went into working in industry just to make money. Learnt most different industries. I'd spend whatever time in each one, and I'd feel like I wasn't learning anymore, and I'd want to go and learn something else, so I'd get a job in another industry. By the time I was 24, I'd been through most of the industries, and I was in New Zealand at the time, and money wasn't good in that sort of work. Weather wasn't good and working outside, so I decided to go to university and study to get a better job where I could work inside and expand my knowledge. I started in law, and I didn't really like that in the end, because I didn't feel like law school taught me much. At the time it looked very much like legislation was simple. It was plain English and easy to read, and all the law degree was going to give me was the right to represent other people, which was not what I wanted out of it. I just wanted to understand things better for myself and to be able to help my family and friends. But I was doing science as a conjoint, so I continued with that. I did physics and applied mathematics. I went through that, and at the start I thought, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to be a physicist and this and that, and by the end of it my outlook had changed a bit. I had a very different view on the science world, and found it was very political and not well paid at all. And by the end I'd learnt enough that I was 28 when I finished, which was a bit of a down point for me, because I was sitting there thinking, well, most of my friends are finishing university in their early 20s, going out and having families, and I'm 28 and I haven't got a family, and I've learnt all this stuff, and I felt like it's a bit late for me, really. I thought, well, what I really want to do after everything I've learnt is give someone else the chance to do what I really wanted, which was to have all this knowledge I've gained coming out of their teens. And obviously the person you want to do that for is your own children. So I decided I wanted to have a family. I had the choice between getting a job in a lab somewhere, realistically probably starting on 60 or 70k, or coming to Australia and just using my industry skills to get any job, which would, there's unlimited jobs here in Australia, and generally work 50 hours a week, get 100k, and you've got a good baseline to start a family. Living costs are better, and at the time I decided to do that, and I came to Australia, set myself up, and went looking for a woman to have a family with at 28, and found my wife. We had a child, and I've spent my life pretty much getting ready to teach him. My wife stayed home. She was a stay-at-home mum at the start, and the idea was that we build a business from home, and eventually we'd turn our lifestyle into our business. We wanted to be well, we did. We talked about it a lot, and we wanted to be able to both be at home and spend our time together. Both be able to spend our time with our son. I wanted nothing more than just to be a stay-at-home dad and look after my son and raise him and teach him everything I could. But being the male, I had the ability to make a lot more money, pretty much double what she could, as she worked in hospitality at the time only. That's all she'd ever done since school. And I think at the time she was making around 6, 7, maybe 800 tops a week. And I was easily able to get any job I got paid around 1,500 to 2,000. So common sense kicked in, and we wanted to build a life, get a house, get some land that we could slowly develop into running a business out of, and be able to both stay at home. And my main priority was, okay, well, the things I want to teach my child, I can't really teach him until his teens. I mean, the cultural stuff comes first in the early years, and I've done my best to do that in the time I had. But I said, okay, I'm happy to go out and work, and you get to have the time at home with our son that I'd love to have, but that's a sacrifice I was willing to make so that we could have the life in the long run. And I knew by the time he was in his teens, I'd have something developed. We'd both be working from home by then. It didn't really go so well. Not a lot developed in the first few years, and then COVID hit. When COVID hit, well, I was pretty much self-employed and working a lot from home and trying to develop things, but business after business got crashed with the COVID regulations, and we'd only just started then. It was bad timing. We went self-employed 3 months before COVID started, and we had no BAS from the previous year. We got no compensation when we were shut down. We were just shut down and had to start again, and we struggled. We had a 3-acre lot at the time, and we were trying to expand it and buy more, so we could have animals and gardens. We're starting gardens, but we didn't really have space for animals realistically, and we wanted to be self-sufficient. And after a couple of years, I think 2 or 3 years of struggling through COVID, we were struggling to make ends meet. I was still the only one working. My wife had tried to come out and help me work, but she wasn't overly keen on much of the work, and I'd enrolled her in a few courses, but she never finished them. She wasn't overly keen by the end of it, and we didn't really have much happening from that side. And I mentioned to her that, well, we have the option of sacrificing the house and buying land. I mean, that's always been my dream, to do something like that, and especially with our son. At the time he was 5 or 6, I think. I think he was 5 or 6. And it was a perfect time to go and start building from scratch, and him to see it and do it all with us and learn everything along the way. I didn't feel that was something that I wanted to put on my wife, because I knew that I was happy to do that work, but I knew it was a lot of work. I'd been doing that sort of work, helping other people build their life, build their properties, and I'd love to just do it for myself and my own family. That is the best long-term thing I could give my children and hand down to them. And especially if they did it all alongside me, they'd learn everything. She was adamant that she loved the idea of that. She wanted to be a farm girl, and so we went for it. We got a very large block, close to 300 acres, and we made a start of it. But I think very quickly it turned out that the work was a bit much. We ran out of money before we got a comfortable enough place sorted. We had a living area and we were working on it, and I went out to work to make a bit more money and tried to set something up at home for her and just fill in when I got home, but it sort of broke down. And at the time things were getting pretty scary. Me being who I am and being vocal and being open and outspoken, and people that were like that with my opinions were getting, for lack of a better word, persecuted. We were scared at the time. We got offered a chance to go and make a life in a non-Western country and promised a job and an income to start us off, and we went for that. But when we got there was no job or income, and it was not what we were promised at all, and it went really south really fast. We ended up coming back, and I decided that we needed to come back. It became a bit of an argument because we were living with her family, and I don't want to get into details because that doesn't need to be gone into, not on this. But we did come back, and things went south in our relationship really bad. That was when effectively a switch was flipped, and yeah. But at the end of the day, the point of this is why I've become the person I am, and why I'm doing this self-sustaining off-grid farm and trying to teach everything about it, and hoping that if I don't get to teach my kid firsthand to doing it alongside me, then he'll eventually find these videos and he'll be able to learn off me that way. So I've gone through my life, and because of the way my life's gone, I've learnt I have the ability and the knowledge, the base knowledge to do anything. I have a full working understanding of the physics of the world and applied mathematics and science. I've worked in most industries and got a good handhold on them. Anything from construction to engineering to technology, IT work, all of that. So I've got options, and all I really wanted to do was do whatever I needed to give my family the life they wanted, and be able to utilize that knowledge to create a lifestyle-based business. Basically, I spent near a decade building that up, and that's what this farm is to me. I'm at the end of it. We were pretty much set to go. Now, our living area wasn't overly comfortable, but it was time to seriously start building, and within a year, and when I get back there, within a year and a half, the first house will be built completely. We've got a reasonably comfortable living area now, got gardens. Animals were coming straight next with chicken pens and goats, so that'll be done. And what I'm trying to do is apply my knowledge to building a basic, simple lifestyle. Not many people can do that. Not many people are born with my intelligence, and even with that intelligence, that doesn't give me the ability to do that off the mark. I spent 10 years going through different jobs, and then through university and learning things, and then the next 10 years learning more, and just on top of it, real world experience. And now I'm really at a point where I'm good to go, and I want to try and pass that knowledge on mainly to my child, because that's what I wanted. By the time I was in my late 20s, I realised that's what I'd really want, and I believe children, for the most part, end up like their parents. They'll normally change one or two fundamental things that they don't agree with, and he'll make those decisions when the time comes, but I'll give him the best education I can so he makes informed and educated choices. So I think sort of covered why I've become the person I am, why I've ended up doing this off-grid sustainable farm for my son, and why I'm able to do it. And that if you're young and you learn quick, and I believe you should be learning everything you can about every aspect of life. So I don't personally like the way the society is. I don't believe that we should have to work 50 hours a week until we're 65, 70 before we can retire and have a few years of peace while we're near crippled and dying. And by that point, it doesn't take a lot to live as human beings. If we've got access to land and we're not getting attacked by our neighbours or the people of our community, and it doesn't take much to gather food, farm food, have clean water and build shelter. As human beings, that's all we need. It's nice to have technology and things, but I guess I've got the perspective because technology was only really developed during my lifetime, my early childhood and teens. So I guess I'm a bit lucky in that aspect, that I can see the time when there wasn't all this technology around, and that life can be a lot simpler. This modern technological life, it's instant gratification, and it's a very modern thing, and it hasn't been around long, and it doesn't mean it's going to be around for long. The world's changing in big ways, and we've been around for 20 to 40,000 years. by most people's accounts, we've been living the same way the whole time. Societies have broken down, been reformed, and people, the fundamental knowledge that people have had to fall back on, and that will always have to fall back on, is what does it take to live? You need food, water and shelter. Medical care helps with the current technology, that's a good thing, and I don't think that'll ever go away, hopefully. But I believe everyone should be doing their best to learn what it takes to live. I think these societies have been, from my interpretation, these societies have developed as, if you want to live in the built-up city society, it's realistically just a tax farm. I mean, you don't have the land to be able to live. It's not possible to gather your own food and water. You need to rely on everything. You need to pay. And for a lot of people, that's, I'm not trying to be derogatory for people here, but if you don't have the ability to learn what you need to learn to live like I'm choosing to, then that might be the best option, because you're maybe not going to be able to learn to do everything for yourself. I mean, my outlook on life is a lot because I've made sure that whatever I've needed done, I've been able to learn how to do it and do it myself. And I've done that my whole life. That's how I've become the person I am. Not everyone has the ability to do that, and if you don't, then you're stuck paying people. Not so much stuck, but of course you've got to trade with people for what you can't do. There's very little that I have to trade with people for because of who I am. If you have to trade with people more, then maybe the city is the better setup, where you've got access to other people to help you, and then you're required to make an income to make currency to trade. If between you and your family you have a good set of abilities and skills, and you can tick all the boxes of living life, then I believe that's the type of people that should live out rural, if they value that, like I do. And they're more than capable of doing it. If you've got enough land, you can live. Build a sustainable farm, make a profit. I mean, the idea with my farm is that I'll do everything I want to for my lifestyle. I'll teach my son. I've got an education channel as well that I'm going to do sort of school and university-based education lessons. I'm going to put all that up, and I'm going to teach everything I can on this channel about the sort of development of the farm and lifestyle and culture and values, and try and pass all that knowledge on to anyone who wants to learn about it and who has similar values and outlook on life. And so that if I don't get to teach my son firsthand, that when he's older he'll be able to find it. As long as the internet doesn't break down, anything that's online is immortalized essentially. And I'd like for my lessons to be there. I'd like my son to be able to learn off me. Whether he can learn off me right now, I'm sure I'll get him back. I've done nothing so wrong that I shouldn't be able to raise my son. Me and my wife have had disagreements. It doesn't mean I should lose my child. I'll get him back, and in the meantime I'll put everything into these videos and I'll keep them going. Even after I get him back, I guess my mood will increase a lot better then, more. And I'm hoping that these channels long term, after a few years, if I can get enough decent content up and get my editing and content better, then I'll probably redo a bunch of the videos, maybe take some down if they're a bit flawed, and upgrade them and try and create a good channel that can maybe make a bit of money through just subscribers and followers and whatnot. But realistically, I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. But in the long run, if things go well, we'll be making an inevitable profit off just living our lifestyle, and the excess of our garden produce and animals and the craft goods we make will make some income, and teaching people how to do all that may make some secondary income through, I guess they call it monetization of these channels. It's sort of automatic if you get enough popularity. Whether or not that happens is not really important to me overly. It's simply I want this out there for anyone that wants to learn, and if I do a good job, well, it's inevitable that I might be able to make a little bit of money off it too, and that can supplement my other incomes, and that can be my son's business going forward, or any other business he wants. Alright, we're at 20 minutes for this one, so I'll stop, and thank you.